Hello, bread friends. It's me, your crazy baker chick, Ellen, here with you with a new recipe that I hope works. I just want to say something. A lot of you think I'm some expert, and my head gets really big when you act that way and you comment on Facebook and tell me these things. I am really not an expert. I just try till it works. So, I do have some tried and true recipes and hints and tips that, a lot of you have used and have good results. But I want you to know that it is not always coming up roses, or in this case, bread, in my kitchen. I want you to see this recipe I've been developing. And we don't need to look closely, but this was the first one. Then this one. Then this one. So I start by kind of scribbling on Post-its. So I used this one today, but I put in less liquid because last time I had to add a lot of flour. To be really honest, I don't know if this is going to work. This is my take on a multi-grain bread. So this is multi-grain bread, Ellen style. And the reason it has to be Ellen style is because all the multigrain cereals that I found that people use to put in bread either have nuts in them or may contain traces of tree nuts or made in the same facility with tree nuts. And if you've watched my other videos, you know I'm allergic to nuts. So there are a lot of products that you can use that I cannot. So if you want to use someone else's bread machine multigrain cereal because you like a multigrain cereal that you know about, please do it. But I had to come up with Ellen style because I can't use those multigrain cereals. So this is, in the truest sense, a multigrain recipe because we will be using bread flour, whole wheat flour, rye flour, oats, Grapenuts cereal because that has barley and it gives a little nice texture, and I'm throwing in some golden raisins for texture and yumminess. So I have everything measured out already. I am going to say that I measured each of my 3 flours in here, and I am going to just give it a little mix. I probably don't need to. So there's bread flour, rye flour, and whole wheat flour in here. And then I'm going to add the oats in here. We will probably not be able to see the texture of the oats. They will probably be ground up, but that doesn't matter. So I'm just mixing it as a precaution. So my ingredients are, this is half and half. Half and half, if you are in another country besides the US, is half milk, half cream. And it comes in a half-gallon container or whatever at the grocery store. People normally buy it to use in their coffee. Now, the reason I'm using it, I don't buy milk. No one here drinks milk. It's just my husband and I. And he uses half and half in his coffee, and it's always on hand. If you want to use non-fat milk or full-fat milk, go for it. If you just want to try water and use a little powdered milk, you can do that too. I don't like the powdered milk. It's fine if you want to use the delay function on your bread machine to have bread, the timer. But I never do that because I'm retired and I can make bread during the day. So I use half and half. To me, the more fat in the milk or liquid, the better. Something just fell. I don't know what that was. Anyway, so I'm not going to bore you by having you watch me put the ingredients in the bread machine, except for the liquid always goes first. So I'm going to put the liquid in, and I have everything in order. I'm going to put the flours in, and that includes the oats, the sugar on the right side of the flour, the salt on the left side, the butter along the sides, and then you make a little well in the mound of flour, and you put I don't have the yeast in here yet, but you put it in the middle, then you put it in the bread machine. If you want to bake this all the way through in your bread machine, you would choose your whole wheat or whole grain course. If you have a Zojirushi Virtuoso Plus, that would be course 2, I believe. I'm going to use the dough course. When we turn off the camera, I'm just going to throw all the ingredients in as they go and start the bread machine on dough cycle. And I will keep you posted, but I didn't tell you about, well, I did, I think, the Grapenuts cereal, which is wheat and barley, and then the raisins. And I have tossed the raisins in just the tiniest, oh, maybe a 1/4 teaspoon of flour, just so they blend better because they won't stick. That's all, not a lot of flour, just a pinch of flour. But these 2 ingredients will go in at the add beep, which is, I don't know, approximately 12 to 15, maybe 20 minutes after the dough starts kneading. So I will keep you posted as to how I need to make adjustments with the dough, and I'll see you then. All right, because I've had so many issues with this dough, I'm super nervous to open the lid. And if this has made a dough ball and I finally figured out the formula, I will be so happy. Let's see. Whoa! I can't believe it. It's not dry. It's not too wet. Unbelievable. I just hope it tastes good and has a good texture once it's baked. Those are the next hurdles. Well, and then it rises, of course. All right, I'll update you in a minute. So my ad beep just went off. And I'm just going to say, I don't usually say this, but this dough is perfect. But I'm hoping that adding these dry things will not mess up the consistency of my dough. It doesn't usually, but the grape nuts are dry, so I'm just putting these in, and I'm just going to check and see if I need to. Sometimes with raisins, I do need to, once in a while, not very often, need to help it incorporate just a little, not very often. So we'll see how that goes. And we have dough that has risen in the bread maker, and just going to take out my paddle, do what I always do, which is squirt a little dish soap and get a little water in the bread pan just so it covers the spindles to make sure that whatever dough is in there doesn't become cement until I can wash the bread pan. All right, I have raisins falling off, and I usually do not knead the bread dough when it comes out, but this dough, as I mentioned earlier, has really driven me crazy. I'm not kneading it. I mean, I know it looks like I'm kneading it, and I guess I sort of am kneading it, but what I'm doing, actually, my purpose is getting air bubbles out, because I think I had a lot of air bubbles the first few times I made it, and therefore it was crumbly because it had holes. I even took a rolling pin one of the times and rolled it out and flipped it and rolled it and just made sure there was no air bubble happening. And but I'm just making sure this way. So I've kind of reformed it into a loaf shape. And I have a prepared loaf pan. I sprayed it with canola oil spray, not all, canola oil spray that I get at Costco. Stick the parchment in. The bread would come out without the parchment. It's not that you need the parchment so much, but it makes it really, really easy to lift up out the loaf like this to put it on the rack to cool. So I'm going to put that there. I'll show you what that looks like. And I'm not going to do this on camera, but I'm going to do the final rise in the oven. what I'm going to do is turn my oven on to 170 degrees, which is as low as my oven goes. If your oven starts at 140 or something like that, I think one of my ovens started at 140, you can do that. But the main thing is you just want to turn your oven on for 1 minute, set a timer, and then turn it back off in 1 minute. If you leave it on for 1 minute, your oven is going to be too hot and it'll just kill yeast and it won't be good. So turn your oven on for 1 minute at the lowest temperature possible and turn it off. If you don't set a timer, I promise you, you're going to be sorry. If your oven has a proof setting, you're a lucky bird. Just stick it in there and set it to proof 45 minutes. But when we turn the camera off, all I'm going to do is turn my oven on to its lowest temp on bake, which is 170. I'm going to set a timer for 1 minute. When the timer goes off, I'm going to turn the oven off. That's a very important thing here. That's why I'm saying it to you a bazillion times. So I'm going to put this into rise. I'm going to set the timer for 40 minutes. I really let it rise for 45, but by the time I take it out, it's mostly risen and the oven is heating, so it has another 5 to 10 minutes while the oven is heating anyway, so it's still having the full rise time. Okay, I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. It has 9 minutes left to rise, and you can see that it is rising nicely. It will not be a big poofy bread because there is so much whole grain, and I do not add vital wheat gluten because I didn't have a source till recently that would be safe for me to use. So in 9 more minutes, I will take it out of here. And so it has risen quite nicely. It looks like it's about doubled in size. And I have the oven preheating to 375 degrees. And while we're here, I have 2 more bread machines going, and in this one I have some sweet brown bread going, and I'm going to check my dough to see if it's too wet or too dry. Aha! So, first of all, it's sticky, but the main thing is, if you see that, if there's dough around the bottom of the paddles, that is definitely a little bit too wet. Now, the dough ball looks pretty good, so it's not going to take much. So let's see if I can, I'm not measuring, but I'm just shaking in what I think is about a tablespoonful. Looks like more probably, but it's not. And I'm going to check that again in a couple minutes. And in this bread machine that hasn't started kneading yet, I'm making Hawaiian rolls for my friend who's recovering from surgery. I'm going to check that brown bread dough again. Oh my gosh. So do you see the difference? That little bit of flour, I'm just going to get this stuff off from around the edges, but it's not really a big deal. And there's another timer, but well, that's like a brown sugar thing. It wouldn't hurt. So look, the dough is perfect, and all I did was add about a tablespoon or 10 grams of flour. I just popped it into a 375 degree oven, and this probably won't, but some of my breads pop up so high that I put the oven rack on 1 rung lower than middle. I set a timer for 30 minutes for this bread, and I have a foil square right here, so I can, when the timer goes off, I can tent it so it doesn't get over browned, because it won't be done, but it'll be brown on the top. That's with pretty much every bread I make. It's brown, it looks done, but it is not done. You must always use an instant read thermometer. Looks like this. They're not a lot of money. Can't open it with one hand very easily, but it has this probe, and you stick it in to the middle of the loaf, and you get a reading, and you want it to be between 190 and 200. 190 to 200 is perfect for whole grain. And if you're doing an enriched bread, like with a lot of butter and milk and egg, you want it to get to 200 degrees. That's Fahrenheit. So the 30-minute timer I can't get to my Apple Watch, it's under my oven mitt. But I am going to take the temperature of this bread carefully so I don't burn myself. And see, it is only about 130 degrees. We are nowhere near done inside, but since it's so nice and brown, sorry for the beeping, I'm going to cover it with foil, set my timer for another 10 minutes, and then I'll show you what's next. I just took the bread out of the oven. It's beautiful. Now you're gonna see why I put the parchment, because look, I can't lift the whole loaf out because I only have one hand available, but I'm just going to pick up the parchment on both sides, put it on my rack, and it will cool for about 3 hours, and I'll slice it and show you what the inside looks like. And the inside of the bread is called the crumb. This bread took about 45 minutes, but remember that at 25 or 30, I covered it with foil so that it wouldn't over brown. And that's a really important thing. And also, it gets brown so fast you always think, oh, it's done, and then it's raw on the inside. I cannot begin to tell you how many breads I made that were raw on the inside, or not completely raw, but not done and mushy and yucky on the inside, because I did not know about that thermometer. Some people say you can thump the bread. Okay, well, I could thump the bread with the top brown and it would make the same noise. So if that works for you, I'm glad for you, but I take its temperature. So there you go. All right, I'm gonna take this out. There it is, there it is, there it is, there it is. And here we go, final product. Beautiful crumb. Those are the golden raisins, just in case you forgot. It is not a big fluffy bread, but the texture, I mean, it's not a tall fluffy bread, but the texture is quite soft and fluffy. See it bounce back? It's not dense at all. It is delicious. Now, I will be the first to tell you that this probably needed some vital wheat gluten. I do not have it. I've never, ever needed it, but this particular bread could have been a little higher rise, or maybe it won't either way. The reason I haven't used gluten is, number one, none of my breads have needed it until now. But the other reason is that I had trouble finding some that didn't have the tree nut issue. One of my bread friends came up with she found a brand, I think it's Hodgkin's or Hodgson's Mill, that has a tree nut free factory, which I didn't know. I'm gonna double check that. I think that's what it was. And then if I have some, I'm gonna order that gluten and then try this recipe again. And if I do find that it makes it fluffier, not fluffier, but higher, bigger, I will do a mini video addendum to this and I will let you know. But there is nothing wrong with this bread. It is absolutely divine. It tastes really, really good. I couldn't help myself from grabbing a piece. There's a piece missing here. So it's really delicious. So this is multigrain bread, Ellen style. Love you guys. Make sure you subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and make sure you give me a thumbs up on this video. I'd really appreciate it. Oh, and turn your notifications on for YouTube so you know when I come out with a new video. Adios, amigas and amigos. And if you're neither an amiga or amigo, adios to you too. This is a little bit of a PS. So, don't laugh at me, but you know I'm weird. What I love most about this bread is that the inside is soft. I mean, not like white bread or challah soft, but soft. It's so good. But the outside, the crust is just crispy. Sorry, that's my dishwasher running. It's crispy. It's not hard, but it's crispy. And the yellow, the golden raisins, oh my God, just gives us a little hint of sweetness. I wouldn't call it a sweet bread, but it does have some sugar in it. And this is just absolutely delicious. You'll love it.